Chapter 879. She pushed Ling Jing away slightly and turned to open the door, intending to leave. Ling Jing grabbed her by the waist and trapped her between herself and the door again. Even if you think I'm trying to please you, that's also sincere. Su Peijian, don't associate all of my actions with schemes and motives. Can't I? You don't have a purpose? Su Peijian smiled, her eyes very gloomy. If you don't have a purpose, what you should do now is to get back to the country, not appear here. Yes, I have a purpose. My purpose is just to start over with you. Can't I do that? No. Su Peijian shook her head, her expression cold. I don't want to start over with you. Because we never started at all. Am I wrong? Su Peijian raised her eyebrows, her expression slightly cold. The two of us were wrong from the beginning. You were calculating, I was ignorant. Since the beginning was wrong. How can we start? Ling Jing was angry, but he couldn't refute. Seeing Su Peijian reach out to open the door, he still didn't give up. Is it so important how we started? Grabbing her hand, his eyes were full of unwillingness. Even if the beginning isn't good, we can make the ending better, right? It's not important to you, but it's very important to me. She broke free, opened the door and left. The moment she stood at the door and closed it, she stopped. Ling Jing, for you, you're used to being high and mighty. You think some things are natural, but I want to tell you. Things in this world are not what you want. The door opened and closed. Su Peijian went to her room without looking back. When she entered the door, Xiang Kaiping had just cleaned up and was about to take a shower. How is it? Have you said it? Yes. Su Peijian squeezed out a smile. Xiang Kaiping was not Li Qianxue. She couldn't confuse the two people. Let's go to Nara tomorrow. The hot springs there are not bad and there are a few good scenery. Okay. Xiang Kaiping was very happy. It's good to be with your daughter. The strong sense of pride in her words made Su Peijian swallow the words she wanted to say to return to China. Mom, go take a shower. I'm tired after playing all day. Rest early. All right. Xiang Kaiping went to the bathroom and Su Peijian sat on the sofa in the room, looking out the window at the darkening sky. Although she had made it very clear today, Ling Jing would definitely follow her tomorrow. She didn't want Xiang Kaiping to find out, and she didn't want Ling Jing to feel proud. But what should he do now? When Su Peijian and Xiang Kaiping woke up and went to the hotel restaurant for breakfast, they found that Ling Jing was there too. Jing, you're early. Xiang Kaiping greeted her warmly. Ling Jing had been rejected by Su Peijian yesterday, but there was no change in her expression at all. Annie, you're early too. Xiang Kaiping wanted to sit down, but Ling Jing pulled out a chair for her. He softened his body and collapsed on the rattan chair, looking very depressed. After New Year's Day, Ling Jing didn't appear again. Su Peijian thought that her words had worked. Faced with Xiang Caiping's question, she only said that Ling Jing had urgent matters to deal with back home and left first. Xiang Kaiping was disappointed for a long time. She looked at Su Peijian from time to time. In fact, her thoughts were too shallow and it was very obvious. How could Xiang Kaiping not see that Ling Jing had been too attentive recently? She knew that he was interested in her daughter, so she wanted to interact more and observe him. Maybe they could become a good couple. Even though she knew that Su Peijian didn't care about it, she thought that it was always good to have more opportunities. Now her daughter's attitude was so cold. And Ling Jing had left again. Those words were not good to say, so she could only swallow them. However, after the trip, she looked at Su Peijian several times and wanted to say something, but stopped herself. Su Peijian completely pretended not to see it. Until the two of them returned to Rong City. After returning because the new year was coming soon, Xiang Kaiping began to busy herself again. She had to prepare for the new year. After a while, she finally stopped talking about Ling Jing. Occasionally, she would sigh with the nanny at home that the two of them were not destined to be together. Su Peijian occasionally heard it but pretended not to hear it. This year's new year came earlier than usual. The new year was at the end of January. Su Peijian was very busy at the end of the year. She was busy last year, and this year because she took over Su Qinghui's company, she was even busier. Not to mention that Tang Mohan had previously said that there was a project in Australia that they could work on together. She was busy all day long. Xiang Kaiping said that she had lost weight, but she didn't feel it herself. The few times she saw Lin Feixing, they talked about some business, but they didn't go any further. Once in a while her car broke down. After going to Tang Mohan's company to discuss the cooperation, he casually asked her about it, then out of politeness he sent her home. This caused Xiang Kaiping to have a lot of misunderstandings. Hua Jinyao's childhood friend naturally couldn't be any worse. Tang Mohan looked like a successful person at first glance. Xiang Kaiping asked again, and when she heard that it was just a cooperation, the happiness on her face faded again. But then she began to talk about Ling Jing. She said that he promised to go back to Rong City to look for her, but he never came. Su Peijian pretended not to hear it. She couldn't tell how she felt. She rejected Ling Jing and didn't let him appear again, but he didn't appear again. It turned out that his persistence was just that. After thinking it through, there was no need to care about some things. Life was like this. She should have seen through it a long time ago. Was it really true that someone couldn't live without someone? Su Peijian told herself to let go of this matter and not take it to heart. In the future, what happened to Ling Jing was none of her business. After the annual party, it was the new year. This year, she still had to spend the new year with Xiang Kaiping. However, on the day before New Year's Eve, she went to see Su Qinghui. Because Su Qingsang and Su Peijian were both here, Su Qinghui bought a property here. Su Yusin was also on winter vacation and old Master Li also came over. Su Qinghui knew that Su Peijian was going to spend New Year's Eve with Xiang Kaiping, so they had a reunion dinner a day in advance. In addition to old Master Li, Li Qianxue, Su Qinghui and Su Yusin, there were also Su Qingsang's family of 4. The 2 children were 2 years old. They were at the age of cuteness. They were learning to speak and looked very cute. Su Peijian had prepared early and gave each of the 2 children a big red envelope. She didn't care about the amount of money as long as it was the thought. In the end, old Master Li and Li Qianxue gave her red envelopes instead. They are not married, so they are considered children, Li Qianxue said. Looking at the few red envelopes in her hand, Su Peijian's eyes were a little hot. In fact, this was very good. She had both sides of the family, both sides of the care and love. She had family, career, love, and so on. It really didn't matter. New Year's Eve. This was a day for family reunion. However, for Ling Jing, it didn't matter whether it was a reunion or not. Every New Year's Eve was the same. Every year it was the same people, the same things. Back and forth, the trivial things were tossed around again and again, wishing that they could be tossed around from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. He sat in the extremely luxurious living room of the Ling family, watching the eldest, second, third, and fourth children surrounding the old man, trying their best to flatter him. He felt disgusted. It wasn't just disgusting. It was also boring. It was the same show every year and he was tired of watching it. Chapter 881. Ever since he was young, Lu Xiyun had always been worried about this son of hers. This was her only child and to her, this child was the most important to her. But she didn't know when it started, but Ling Jing wasn't close to her, let alone Ling Xian. It was good enough that the father and son didn't turn against each other. Ling Jing didn't want to take over the business of the Ling family, but the more he didn't want it, the more the old master liked it. Ling Jing made a fuss last time and Ling Xian gave him more work. This made his face very ugly. It was the new year but he sat there like he was asking for a debt. Lu Xiyun called him a few times but he didn't hear her. Ling Xian was angry. What's with your attitude? It's the new year. Who are you putting on that face for? Ling Jing finally came back to her senses and looked in Ling Xian's direction. He was looking at her too. Not only Ling Xian, but also his illegitimate children. There were 5 of them. There was even an extra judge for a mahjong table. Speaking of which, the situation of the Ling family could be considered complicated. It was the current head of the Ling family, Ling Xian, who was also Ling Jing's father. When he was young he was very dissolute and playful. After all, the Ling family had a strong background. To be able to give birth to a child like Ling Jing, Ling Xian's looks were naturally not bad. Ling Xian was very dissolute. It was fine if he was dissolute. He didn't pay attention. When he was happy he wouldn't think about taking precautions. So, before he got married, these illegitimate children were born one after another. In just a few years Ling Xian gave birth to 5 children. The eldest was Ling Qing, the second was Ling Hong, the third was Ling Yu, the fourth was Ling Han, and the 5th was Ling Fei. Not only were all 5 children boys, but the mothers of all the children thought that they had given birth to the children of the Ling family, so they had the chance to marry into the Ling family and become the matriarch of the family. However, even though Ling Xian was playing around, he was still very clear about the things that he had to understand. Although he liked all these women, he didn't plan to marry any of them. He was just playing around. Giving the children an identity and raising them in the Ling family was already a sign of his responsibility. With this premise, no matter how hard those women tried to enter the Ling family, none of them succeeded. And Ling Xian was also satisfied with this kind of life. Until she met Lu Xiyun. Who was Lu Xiyun? She was born into a wealthy family, But in the end, with her own hard work, she fought her way through the entertainment industry and finally became a double Best Actress. Ling Xian accidentally bumped into Lu Xiun when he attended the award ceremony. It was shocking. They started a crazy pursuit. In Ling Xian's eyes, there was no woman he couldn't get. In the blink of an eye, the first month passed just like that. One day, when she came home from work and passed by the bakery that Ling Jing had opened when he lied to her, she found that the sign had been changed. She was stunned. Because Ling Jing had chosen this place as a place to lie to her, she didn't look at this shop every time she passed by. But she didn't expect that the shop would change its sign after a few days. The new sign was very popular. It was called Zhen Xian Baking Shop. It didn't sound as good as the previous English name. Strangely, she pulled over and got out of the car. She entered the Zhen Xian Baking Shop. The decoration and layout seemed to be completely different from the last time she was here. The staff in the same uniform were putting new products on the shelves. One of the cakes was very exquisite with two very cute people on it. It was a man and a woman and it was very small. She looked around and finally decided on this one. "Pack this cake for me," Su Peijian said. Unexpectedly, the staff behind the counter shook her head when she saw which one she was pointing at. "I'm sorry, this cake was made by our boss. It's not for sale." "Not for sale?" "Yes." The staff nodded. "This cake was made by our boss for his girlfriend, so it's not for sale." "Is that so?" Su Peijian nodded. Then she didn't want to buy anything. She was about to leave, but someone walked out of the kitchen of the shop. "Pack that cake for her." Su Peijian was stunned for a moment. That familiar voice made her think that there was something wrong with her ears. She turned around and found Ling Jing standing there. He was wearing a chef's hat and white overalls. He was also holding a tray in his hand, which was full of cakes. He handed the cake to the staff on the side, walked in front of Su Peijian and fixed his eyes on her.